long have you been waiting here? Nobody told. Oh, sorry, I forgot how tall you were. Let's fix that. There we go. Hi, oh my God, it's so good to see you. It's been a little bit. I hope you've been well. I hope you're doing okay today. You look good, by the way. Definitely like take a moment. Give yourself, we got 24 hours, a lot of minutes. Let's utilize that. But I just wanted to check in case you're feeling overwhelmed, or maybe even underwhelmed. Maybe you just ended up on this video and you're scrolling through the related videos, some of which might be me with like 10% of the amount of hair that I have now. For the last year, I've been living alone in this space. Well, kind of alone, but it's given me the opportunity to kind of experiment with just my day-to-day and like the habits that I have, the way that I approach certain things. And I think I've tried a lot that I've ultimately found really work for me, and I want to come on here to share them with you. Also, I'm probably going to put a bunch of markers in the description in case you want to just like kind of like skim through that. Or if you want to come along for the ride, I have a lot to tell you. So the first thing is that every time I want to try a new habit, I always set like a time limit for it. Sometimes all it takes for me to be motivated to do something is to know that it's temporary, especially if it's something that I find difficult to do. So let's say I currently have the habit of cleaning everything after I'm done cooking, and I want to pick up the habit of cleaning things as I go. I'll just say for the next 5 meals, I'll clean as I go. And then afterwards, I'll go back to doing whatever I was doing beforehand. And ultimately, if I end up liking a new habit, I stick to it. And if I don't, it doesn't work out for me, it doesn't work out for me. And that brings us to tip number 2, which is if something isn't working out for you, don't be afraid to like change it. Even if the habit itself is good, if it's just not aligning with what you're doing, change it. I used to keep track of every single time I washed all of my towels and I cleaned everything in my kitchen. I would write things down on my phone or on my computer every single time I washed something, to the point where I just stopped doing it. And while it was technically a good habit, like it was a habit that benefited me, it wasn't worth the effort, and it just isn't something that I wanted to give time to. Another thing is don't be afraid to like move stuff around in your space to make it work for you, as long as you can, obviously. This is something that I like to call the air fryer effect. For me, an air fryer is something that makes cooking and making food very convenient, very quick. It consolidates a lot of steps. But if I have an air fryer and I put it in like a cupboard or in a closet and it's not already out and ready to go, the odds of me using it are just so slim. One day I was like, you know what? I just got to leave this out. I didn't leave it plugged in because I fear that, but I would leave it out on the counter, and I basically found a new home for it. And it was worth it because that made me use my air fryer. Things might also be fine. You might be used to it already, but just the change of pace, if it makes things even a little bit convenient, it feels refreshing. It feels nice. If you're like me and you struggle with like decorating your space and like committing to things, whether it's furniture or artwork or something that's a little bit of both, get what you like. Just get things that you like. If you're struggling about making things match each other, kind of taking a step back and being like, I'm just gonna, if I see an individual thing and I like it on its own and you have the means to get it, that works. And ultimately you'll see that your space will come together because you are going to be like kind of the glue that is the center theme of it. Another thing is that decorating is a slow process. It took me a really long time to like even commit to the furniture that I have here. I've gotten better at it. It was like more of like the first 6 months I did almost nothing. And then in like the second half of the year, I started actually getting a move on this. So you can see my wall is entirely empty. That's something that I'd like to change this year. Utilize smart lighting if you feel like you're looking at the same thing every day. For example, you could have something like this, maybe something like this, or maybe even something like this. I don't know. Also warning, I'm gonna switch back to the white lighting, so it might get a little bright. Again, this isn't even for like one consistent lighting setup for your space. It just helps to like change it up if you are always looking at the same thing. One of the things that I've been working on developing this past year has been my personal style. There's definitely a lot you can do if you want to develop your style in some direction that is different than where you are now. I definitely am interested in figuring out what I like to wear, what I don't like to wear, and just how I can mix and match my clothes to make me feel good every time I go out. Because when you wear an outfit that you feel good in, it is a sensation that I cannot describe in any other way. Utilize small opportunities, like whether you're going outside for 5 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, going to get groceries, going to pick something up from a store. Utilize those moments to practice wearing outfits. The worst case scenario is you wear something that you don't really like for like 30 minutes. And the best case scenario is you end up finding a fit that you're like, wait, this looks really good. The more outfits that you try wearing, that you challenge yourself to put together, the better you're gonna get at it. I definitely am still figuring out my style and what I like to wear. I'm hoping that a year from now, when I'm making a video, I can look back and be like, oh wow, look at me. I thought I had it all figured out. I'm someone who would wear like sweatpants and a t-shirt to go grocery shopping consistently. And ever since I started putting on an outfit as if I'm going to some social gathering, it's made, one, the activity a lot more fun. And two, I've really gotten to be reminded of like what's in my closet. And I've learned a lot about what works well. Sometimes my idea of something is very different than when I actually put it on. Something that took me a really long time to figure out is that sometimes it is just not the day. If you're someone who likes to make stuff, or you tend to have things that you want to do, but not a lot of time for it. So like whenever you do have a gap of free time, you try to like squeeze everything in, or you try to do at least one of those activities. I know that it's just not the time for it. Like my brain just isn't there. Then I just call it, I need to do something that's a little bit less intense. Maybe I'm gonna watch something or play a game. It sucks. I don't know how to control it, but I do know that I feel a lot better when I do check in with myself early and then I can make use of the rest of the time of the day by doing something that's actually more relaxing for my brain than trying to force myself through it and then feeling burnt out with like nothing that came out of it by the time it's nighttime. And when it comes to like socializing or like meeting people, making friends, or just kind of getting to know your community and trying to interact with people that have similar interests to you, I think one of the best ways to do that is to go to an activity consistently. Something that I started doing about a year ago is going to hip hop classes, and I've been going to the same class. Now I go to more classes, but what I did for a while was I was going to that same class every single week at that time. And you don't need to do something on a weekly basis, but if you do go to like the same activity on some cadence, there's a good chance that eventually you're going to start seeing other people that also go at their own pace. You'll at least like recognize each other. Sometimes you might get there early, you might stay a little bit later. You just kind of already passed that vibe check with each other where you've seen each other enough times that like, you know, you have something in common. And honestly, that has like helped me meet so many people that I think are so cool. I think this would apply to anything, whether it's a sewing class, pottery class, you know, you can check your local library. So oftentimes they have different activities that you can go to. But in general, just like any activity, you don't need to go like every week, but going to the same activity several times, I think is going to increase the likelihood that you end up seeing the same people. And that often helps break the ice a little bit more than just going to an activity one time and then hoping that you interact with someone. But that also works too. If going consistently is too big of a step, make the first step smaller. That usually helps me. And then branching off of that, this is definitely something that has come with like living alone, but I do think you can do this even if you don't live alone. It helps if you have your own kind of private space. Be silly and like don't be too afraid to be silly. If anything, think of it as practicing being silly. I have like a full length mirror here. Like I talk to myself all the time. I laugh at my own jokes. I dance. The mirror helps with the dancing. It's super fun. Dancing in front of a mirror is like a very freeing experience. You don't even need to have rhythm or understand what you're doing, but just putting on like a DJ set from YouTube, finding whatever genre you feel like makes you want to groove, just doing things that kind of help you break the tension with yourself. I have felt that it has made me way more relaxed as a person. I don't even know if it's considered like comedic relief in life, but I think it's helped me build my confidence. It's helped me become more comfortable in my own skin. This is something that I've been able to carry across a lot of the facets of my life. So when it comes to like home maintenance and cleaning and like laundry and all of that, don't overlook how good it feels to sleep on a clean pair of sheets. I always keep 2 sets on deck so that like when I take one off, I can immediately put the other set on. It's definitely a lot harder for me to hold on to my motivation through taking off the sheets, washing them, and then putting them back on. So having a second pair really helps with that. And it's not like I'm stressing this because like it's good for you, although like it is good for you. I just have genuinely noticed the difference in like just my entire night's rest. If my sheets are like ready to be washed, or if I'm slacking on it for whatever's going on in life, it's a very noticeable change in how well I sleep. If you're looking for something to just kind of refresh your life, if you haven't washed your sheets in a little while, or if you haven't changed your sheets in a little while, I'm not looking at how long it's been for you. It really does make a difference. This next one's kind of broad, but like it's just based on my experience this year. There's so many like life hacks that people are posting online, and like I usually take them with a grain of salt, and I usually assume that like maybe they don't really work, but I will be honest, anytime I've used like water and baking soda and like a tough bristle brush, like a toothbrush, to clean a surface, especially like my stove, it's worked. It's worked really well. I still use like other cleaning solutions for like cleaning around my house. Do this at your own risk. Every situation's different, but for like standard grease and like just like markings that I haven't been able to get off with certain cleaning agents, water, baking soda, and a little brush, it's worked. I don't know. And then another thing that I started doing once I moved in here is I started wearing indoor shoes. I currently use this pair of Hello Kitty Crocs. I also have some Patrick ones. The reason why I do it is if you're like me and you tend to wear socks very frequently, like I'm still wearing socks right now, but when you're just walking around in socks, one, they collect a lot of dirt, but also like they just get holes in them. Also, disclaimer for all of these, but like especially the shoes in the house thing, these are obviously not original ideas of mine. These are just things that I started doing over the last year. I know, for example, like having like house slippers or house shoes is something that is a part of different cultures as well. So just keep that in mind. None of these are like original thoughts of mine. Now, when it comes to cooking, I need to make multiple batches work. Cooking definitely does take a lot of time. It takes a lot of energy, because sometimes you end up spending like 2 hours cooking something, then you eat it in 10 minutes. Where it really comes in handy is when you make a batch that is so large that the next time you have lunch and dinner, it really does come in handy when it comes to not needing to think about what you want to eat and just knowing you have food ready in the fridge or freezer. And then going off of that, don't be afraid to freeze things. Anytime I have like any meat, any bread, I buy them and I'll like separate them a little bit to be portions that I would like to defrost them in. And then I just stick them in the freezer. And if you are someone that cooks for yourself, I use Notion, and every time I try a recipe, if I like the recipe, I'll just like save the link and then I'll put a header that's like the image of the actual food. That way, anytime I want to eat something, I can just like look at a gallery of all the things that I've tried before. And then 1, I know what they're like because I've made them before. And 2, like when I go to a restaurant and I see a menu, like I'm pulling up an app, I'm looking at photos. And one more thing is I keep a note specifically for me to store any of my ideas. Like if I'm going throughout the day and someone recommends something to me, or there's something that I want to remind myself to do later, and that way it really helps reduce the clutter in my brain. I try not to like give that list any specific category. It's just for any thoughts, anything that I want to write down, and I know that the next time I look at it, I'll know where to pick it up from there. I do try to clear it out at the end of every single day. I don't always do something with the ideas that I write down. Sometimes I see them, I'm like, oh, this was nice, but I think that's the extent of it, and I'll just like delete it off the list. Something that I really needed to remind myself of is that tools are meant to be used. Sometimes I focus too much on like keeping it looking pretty and clean and pristine. Okay. For me, it tends to apply in the kitchen when it comes to like a new skillet or like the Dutch oven, where I become so focused on like keeping it clean and keeping it pretty that I don't end up using it, or I make it so much effort to clean it that it stops me from using it. As long as you're not damaging the item, it is okay for it to look used. If I feel like I'm straying off of my default emotions, this is usually the checklist that I go through. I would like to mention that this is something that is very general and is not meant to like tackle issues that require professional attention. I usually ask myself, when was the last time I ate? How much water have I been drinking throughout the day? How much sleep did I get last night? Have I been scrolling through social media the entire day? And when was the last time I smelled outside air? Again, everything on that checklist isn't meant to tackle any serious issues, but I do tend to run through it whenever I am feeling a little bit funky, because oftentimes I'll find that I am lacking in at least one of those things, and then as soon as I correct it, I do tend to feel a lot better. And I think for this last thing, this mainly applies to like people who like to make stuff or share things online, but I feel like I put myself in that category. There is no obligation for you to share the things you make with the internet. You can make something even with the intention to share it with the internet, spend weeks putting it together, and then be like, you know what? This is just for me. Sometimes like the stress of like trying to make something that meets a specific standard becomes too big of a hurdle for making the thing in the first place. Let's take this video for example. There's a chance that I don't post this. There's a chance that I spend all these hours filming and editing and putting it together, and then I'm watching it and I'm like, you know what? I don't really like it. Although honestly, I've been having so much fun with this, I think I am gonna like it. But if I don't, that's okay. And just like that, we are back on the floor. But also just wanna say thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If there are any habits that you have that I talked about or didn't talk about that you wanna share, please do. Or if you just wanna say hi, or you have any questions on anything that I brought up in the video or that you saw in the video, even if it's unrelated to what I talked about, don't hesitate to like just ask or mention it in the comments. I will read and respond to everything. I love this. This is like my favorite thing to do. If you do want to get notified for the next video, then you can subscribe to the channel. But if not, it's totally cool, no pressure. Like I said, do what works for you. I just appreciate you still being here this late into the video. But lots of love, take care, stay hydrated, and hopefully I'll see you soon.